Om Ayahi Varade Devi Rakshare Brahmavadini Gayatri Chandasang Mata Brahmajani Namastute. Om Asato Ma Satagamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrittor Ma Amritangamaya Aviravirmaedhi Rudra Jatte Dakshinamukam Te Namang Pahi Nityam Te Namang Pahi Nityam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O Divine Mother, reveal Thyself in our heart and in our midst. We invoke Thy presence amidst us. Thou art the supreme word of the Scriptures. Thou art the embodiment of knowledge and liberation. Thou art the supreme bridge to immortality. Lead us from unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death, disease and suffering to immortality. Manifest Thyself in us through and through, and protect us with Thy compassionate face. Om Peace. Peace be unto us. Peace be unto all living beings. I am reading the translations of few verses of the Vivekananda of Shankaracharya. The trouble such as that caused by a load on the head can be removed by others, but none but one's own self can put a stop to the pain which is caused by hunger and the like. The patient who takes proper diet and medicine is alone seen to recover completely, not through work done by others. Who but one's own self can get rid of the bondage caused by the fetters of ignorance, desire, action and the like, and even in 100 crores of cycles? Neither by yoga, nor by sankha, nor by works, nor by learning, but by the realization of one's identity with Brahman is liberation possible, and by no other means. The beauty of a guitar's form and the skill of playing on its chords serve merely to please some persons. They do not suffice to confer sovereignty. Loud speech consisting of a shower of words, the skill in expounding scriptures, and the likewise erudition, these merely bring on a little personal enjoyment to the scholar, but are no good for liberation. The study of the scriptures is useless as long as the highest truth is unknown. It is equally useless when the highest truth has already been known. The scriptures, consisting of many words, are a dense forest which causes the mind to ramble merely. Hence, the men of wisdom should earnestly set about knowing the true nature of the self. For one who has been bitten by the serpent of ignorance, the only remedy is the knowledge of Brahman. Of what avail are the Vedas, the scriptures, the mantras and the medicines to such a one? A disease does not leave off if one simply utters the name of the medicine without taking it. Similarly, without direct realization, one cannot be liberated by the mere utterance of the word Brahman. These are the few verses translated. This morning, the subject of our talk is the way of Sankaracharya. Sankaracharya's life is not much known. as it is with regard to the other great teachers of Indian lore. They are shrouded in legends, heresies, often superstitions. But indirect evidences are there. Shankaracharya was born around 7th or 8th century, and he lived a short span of life, but 32. It is said at the age of 7, he took to the life of a monk of renunciation. At the age of 11, he finished the entire business, attained Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the highest consummation of all yoga, prayer, contemplation. At the age of 16, he completed the commentaries on the Upanishads and other scriptures. It is said, Shankaracharya, he made his seat of spiritual practices at Badrika Ashrama in the great Himalayan pilgrimage, and another 16 years of his life was granted to him as a boon by the great sage Vyasa. Although he was that time not there, tradition has it that he got a new lease of life for another 16 years to complete his commentaries on the Brahma Sutras. At the age of 32 or so he passed. But within this brief span of life, what he has given to India is of supreme significance. Among the great teachers of Indian lore, Hindu thoughts, therefore Shankaracharya occupies a preeminent position. The Vedas gave the Hindu tradition the clues to life. They were esoteric in their nature. Shankaracharya gave India Vedanta. Vedas and Vedanta, the two are not the same. Vedas are not single book. They are composed or recorded at different phases of history. Often their conclusions are not unanimous, given in aphoristic languages. Often they are contradictory. Shankaracharya first gave the philosophical significance or the rational base of the Vedic esoteric teachings, which came to be known as Upanishads. The word Upanishad means that which takes one nearer to God, or that which takes one nearer to the teacher. The Vedic esoteric verses and the teachings are monistic in nature. For some, they are polytheistic. The Vedas mention in different Vedas different deities being worshipped. Indra, Agni, Varuna, and so forth. But one significant factor, that when these hymns have been sung, each deity is being described as the supreme God. Many think the Vedic deities are anthropomorphic. So therefore the Vedic teachers worshipped many deities, not one supreme God. That is not monotheistic. But those who go carefully to see the Vedic verses, then each deity is being described as the supreme God. Therefore, it indicates that the monotheistic or one supreme God, the worship of one God of varying forms, is the most ancient in the Vedic thoughts. Yet we find the worship of the various forms, deities of God, often describing the highest goal of life, such as moksha or liberation, being described in different languages. These differences and apparent contradictions later gave rise to the Vedantic traditions. Vedantic traditions are three in number, generally known. The Dvaita Vedanta of Madhva, then Vishishtadvaita Vedanta of Ramanuja, and Advaita Vedanta of Sankara. Dvaita means dualistic Vedanta. Vishishtadvaita means qualified non-dualistic, and Advaita means non-dualistic. According to the Indian traditions, Advaita Vedanta is the last word of any spiritual tradition that can ever be possible. Slowly, from the beginning of the six systems, if we carefully trace the origin from worship of from rituals to contemplative worship, and the third, the investigation into the nature of one supreme self, one supreme God, which in the earlier Vedas being described as having no definite form, came to be signified and indicated as pure spirit or Brahman in Shankaracharya's time. Just before Advaita Vedanta, the preeminence is of Yoga and Sankhya, which are known as realistic dualism. The entire principle reduced into two, and Shankaracharya reduced the entire two into one. Shankaracharya gave, therefore, India's preeminent teaching, Advaita Vedanta, non-dualistic Vedanta, bringing out the rational basis of the Vedic teaching and formulating a methodology which was somewhat hidden in the Vedas, and also before Shankaracharya, which was not taught in a systematic way, since the esoteric meaning of the Vedic teachings was never made popular. Only a teacher and a number of selected and tested disciples, these were the places where these teachings were taught. So Shankaracharya's contribution is Advaita Vedanta, non-dualistic Vedanta. Non-dualistic and monistic, although the two words often are made synonymous, but strictly speaking, there is a little difference. Monistic means one. Shankaracharya gave non-dualistic, Advaita. Dvaita means dualism, A means none. He did not say it is monism. To have a brief look into his teaching, first we will give the outline of his teaching, then we will give a brief critical estimate, what others say about it. Then we will sum up with the harmonious teachings or the highlighting the harmony in his teaching. Shankaracharya's contribution is therefore first non-dualism, the rock bed of monotheism. Monotheism means one worship of one God, but expressed in various languages. First time Shankaracharya pointed out that one supreme being, known as Brahman, shines through all the Vedic deities, however numerous. Each one is the aspect, one of the many aspects of one supreme being. Second point, or second contribution, he gave the idea of Jivan Mukti, salvation in this very life. Third, he gave his unique methodology, the self-knowledge, which only and alone can give salvation which is complete and total. There may be many forms of salvations, they are all true, but in the language of Sankaracharya, they are not complete or total. A hardcore, rationalistic interpretation of the Vedic teachings which makes for Vedanta. The word Vedanta means end of the Vedas, the concluding part. Vedic seers were never or anxious to develop a philosophy. Philosophies always come later. The supremely significant point is direct experience of God, communion with God. Lacking in this communion, people go to systematize philosophy. Philosophy is essentially a scripture for the doubters, not for those who want to know truth. Often it is called research. So it has been said that often that research in PhD is known to be transferring the bones from one graveyard to another. Really speaking, they are not doing anything new. Digging the old bones, examining them and transferring them to another graveyard, and by its record, getting a PhD. So philosophy is a systematizing of those which have been intuitively felt and realized, to give a language. Intuition has no language. It is silence. How intuition can be transferred into language, that is philosophy. Further, the rational language, which is always frail and incomplete to express the intuitive experiences, still become difficult. Then comes theology, further crystallization of the intellectual thought, to give it a chance to strike root on the emotional layers or the soil of human mind. And from theology, it gradually strikes roots like a plant in the form of ritual, tradition, and so forth. Sankaracharya highlighted this experience aspect. His path is known as the path of vichara, discrimination, or self-knowledge. Like all philosophies, his philosophy also begins with the sufferings of man. Suffering, the human suffering, is the most real thing in the world. Most real, most tangible. All great traditions have indicated the world is an abode of suffering. Only the fools think that it is the abode of pleasure. The ignorant, the fool, and the idiots, they think that this is the abode of pleasure. But they do not hold their view long. They change their mind very soon, after they have lived little longer. So Sankaracharya, in his commentary on one of the verses of the Upanishads, Katha Upanishads, describes the nature of the universe, this world. It is more a graveyard than abode of the living. The number of the dead since the beginning of creation, if we take a census, the dead will far outnumber the living. Pleasures are very little. Pain is more. The Bhagavad Gita, the Katha Upanishad, both describe this universe as samsara, as the tree, eternal banyan tree. It has innumerable branches. Its twigs and leaves are infinite number. In that tree, various creatures, living, non-living, they make their nests. This tree is made of karma. It is constantly being shaken by the winds of pain and pleasure, attachment, aversion. It is nourished by desire and thirst for enjoyment. These jivas dwelling on this tree, some weeping, wailing, in agony, some singing, dancing. In one word, it is a madhouse, where some are crying, some are weeping. This tree, Sankaracharya indicates, can be felt only by knowledge of Atmajnana or self-knowledge, not by any other means. And so long this tree, which is producing fruits, bitter and sweet, its tree is cut down or felled, there is no hope for a human individual. So suffering is the most significant fact of life. Gautama Buddha's first noble truth is that there is suffering. Sankhya, Yoga, they both also indicate they began with suffering. In fact, all philosophies begin with an attempt to put an end to the miseries of life. The perspectives vary, the points of view differ. The materialistic philosophies, they also seek to end the sufferings of life. Vast amounts are being spent. How to conquer nature, make our comforts abiding. Whether it is medicine, psychology, or natural sciences, or religion, or philosophy, they are busy in making researches how to put an end to the miseries of life. But various philosophies, even though developed and continue to develop, yet, not yet, in a position to give us a decisive solution to put an end to the miseries of life. In this context, Sankaracharya's path is notable and deserves careful attention. The sufferings, for example, the first point, why men suffer, why there is suffering. The materialistic philosophers, they indicate we suffer because we are not cunning enough. We suffer because we cannot take opportunity which is available. Conquer nature, subdue it, then enjoy it. Among the religious philosophies, some indicate cause of suffering is sin. Major religions of the world, they indicate caused by sin. Sin is congenital, inherent. The Judeo-Christian tradition indicates that a man is born of sin, lives in sin, and therefore, without the grace of God, there is no hope, no meaning of self-effort or self-endeavor. Although we find in the Augustinian philosophy, St. Augustine, he indicates sin. And also St. Paul later, that sin is not so much a positive or efficient cause, but a deficient cause. That it is something, want of something. Some indicate sufferings are due to the inscrutable providence, will of the providence. Some by the law of karma. The Hindus believe that man suffers, an individual, because of his past karma. It is mechanical, irrevocable. So therefore, life is karma. Some contribute, the Buddhistic and Jaina philosophers, sufferings are due to thirst for enjoyment. Tanha or Trishna. Some as denial of God. And some due to foolishness. Sankaracharya, in this background, indicates sufferings are due to ignorance, avidya. Avidya is veiling the mind, or ignorance. The word ignorance means ignoring some vital fact of life. Most important fact of life. When you ignore and overlook, then life takes a dramatic turn in the form of a puzzle or riddle, difficult to resolve. This is called ignorance. The word ignorance, what we conventionally understand, and what Sankaracharya indicates, there is a big difference. Ignorance, conventionally, is overlooking some fact. But Sankaracharya's ignorance is deep. It is forgetfulness. Ignorance gives rise to ego, the separative will. Separative will breeds attachment and aversion and clinging. And therefore, the picture becomes complete. Ignorance does not let an individual live in the world of reality. World of reality, what is real? If it is so, the real and the unreal. Sankaracharya in his Viveka says, real when it is not there, then there comes unreal. So unreal, although it is absence of reality, is also something positive. What is real? Sankaracharya says, that which is real for all time. Here also conventionally real means anything which is tangible, visible, perceptible, that is real. Sankaracharya says, no. Real is unchanging. Real is free from friction. Real is conducive to the good of all creatures, irrespective of the time, place, climate, culture. Real is universal. Real is rational. Real is experienceable. This is different from conventional idea of reality. Sankaracharya's reality is absolute reality. He makes a distinction. Absolutely real, practically real, and real from the point of view of imagination. All are real, but not of the same order and grade. In everyday life also, certain things we think they're real for 2 days, real for 2 minutes, real for 2 months, real for whole life. Ignorance, overlooking the absolute reality, makes the relative reality as most important. That which is temporarily real becomes permanently real. Therefore, the distinction between the real and the unreal vanishes. That which is imagination becomes real. That which is real for 2 days, that becomes real. The entire Sankaracharya's philosophy is described in half a verse. Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya Jiva Brahmaiva Napar. Brahman alone is real. The world is illusory. And the Jiva and Brahman, the individual and the total, are non-different. This is the entire philosophy of Sankaracharya. That there is that which is real only Brahman. Brahman is pure consciousness. It is absolutely real. It is formless. It assumes many forms. It is like a vast ether. It is the smallest of the small. It is the biggest of the big. It cannot be defined by any positive epithet. It can be indicated or hinted at by negative words. by neti neti. The word has been this not, this not. That which is infinite cannot be designated by any idea. It is far, it is near. It is the inmost self of all beings. At the same time, it is the most inscrutable entity. It cannot be indicated because it is so real. It is so near, that's why it is so invisible. It is so vast, that is why it has no form. It is the eye of the eye, ear of the ear, speech of the speech. Man may doubt, may philosophize, may have faith, can argue, but he cannot deny himself. No one can deny the denier. When all is said, that the person, the I remains. The one who says, who asserts. Even the most atheist, he cannot deny himself because he is the denier. That is the most real. If there is anything that is the most visible, that is what we have in hand. This Brahman is like the gold in various gold ornaments, the clay in various clay pots, salt in the ocean water, permeates and pervades everything. Brahman alone exists, nothing else. Truth of various forms of gold ornaments is gold. Truth in various forms and names of clay pots is clay. We use different names. Names and forms, where from they came? Shankaracharya says individual mind superimposed, gave a name, put a tag, began to believe it. It became real. Name is such, we begin to believe. Our forefathers believed, tradition believed, we began to believe. Someone called a structure called chair. Then chair became chair. Its baby is born, we give it a name. Then the baby thinks that the baby was born with that name. It becomes real. The story I told you that a person, usually, the people have dog and cat as pets. A person selected different names, unconventional. A person had one dog and a cat. So he kept the name of the dog as cat and name of the cat as dog. By that, the dog and cat did not have difficulty, but they never had trouble. When he called the dog, the cat came. And when he called the cat, dog came. But people felt very uncanny, the visitors, the relatives, because they are not accustomed to think in this way. So similarly, these are called name and form, these are superimposed by the individual human mind. Then we began to believe. Then this belief gradually became natural. As a person, if he lives in darkness, then darkness becomes natural for him. The light becomes unnatural. So therefore, the real completely became lost sight of. The question comes, why this ignorance? The reason, various philosophies have tried to give answer. Where from the cause of ignorance or sin? Why sin came? Why ignorance came? Many philosophical and theological justifications have been put forward. But none of them is complete or decisive. Here Shankaracharya takes a stand of wise agnosticism. The only teacher in the entire range of religious history who has been bold enough to say, I do not know how this ignorance came. In fact, this is the most naughtiest point of religious theology. We cannot answer why, how sin entered into the Garden of Eden and changed the mind of Adam, which prompted him to eat the forbidden apple. Why it happened? Similarly, we cannot say where from ignorance came. The only answer that ignorance is in the individual mind, not in Brahman. Ignorance is like a patch of cloud which temporarily hides the sun. Ignorance is for the blossoming forth of Brahman into apparent diversity. Only other way is to say God wanted, superimposed little ignorance on himself to appear as many. Ignorance is the beginning of life. It is sustained by it. Without ignorance there is no life. Mark Twain said that God first created the idiots, but that was for practice. Then he created the school board. It is very true. He practiced first by creating idiots. The world is that. Ignorance, the reality of ignorance must be understood by the very beginning, that it was created by the idiots. So therefore we would not try to further know why ignorance came. It is like telling how a person could make a mistake. This is ignorance. Or the Benjamin Franklin said, God cures the patient, the doctor takes the fee. This is also another. This is the world. So Sankaracharya says, do not try, while you are in a state of nightmare, to understand when the nightmare began, why did it happen? Because you will never know. The very question, that also within ignorance. Our very search, you can ask, this knowledge of truth, the way of Sankara, is it not also within the realm of ignorance? Certainly it is so. Our spiritual search for truth, peace, that is also from the point of view ignorance. It is also a dream. But Sankaracharya says, well, if life is tormented by bad dreams, what do? You must take hold, try to dream a nice dream. There must be dream. If you do not see good dream, you will be a victim of bad dream. And therefore, Sankaracharya says, my way, I do not claim that it is complete or decisive. But I can say that among the dreams, this is a preferable dream. You try other dreams, but this is a better dream. This is more logical dream than illogical. So suffering, therefore, man losing his self-identity becomes the victim of ignorance. Ignorance breeds varieties of self-will behavior, and the reality is lost sight of. A private universe comes into being. Each person lives in his own private universe of values and virtues, likes and dislikes. Why this universe came to that, Sankaracharya says, this is due to Maya. This is another significant contribution of Sankaracharya. Various theories of creation, as you know, where from this universe came. This universe, some say, believe it was created. The act of creation is real. Some deny the act of creation and the creator. Some deny both the act and the fact. God created the universe out of nothing. Out of nothing something cannot come. There must be something. If God created something which we see, perceive, which torments, it is something. We cannot say it is nothing. Then where from it came? then nothing becomes something. Nothing is the cause of something. The rational mind is not very happy with the explanation. In a sense, it is no explanation. He created something out of nothing. The second idea, that God has become universe and become exhausted, means fully complete. God has become as milk turns into yogurt. This also is not a satisfactory explanation. First, what is the nature of God? Nobody ever saw him. He is a philosophical concept. And then, if God is infinite, omnipotent, how can he undergo change and transformation? That which is infinite, real, cannot change. So therefore, God cannot become transformed into universe. The third view is, God created out of atoms, pre-existing atoms, which is the Nyaya Vaisheshika and the Dvaitavadas believe that pre-existing atoms are there. God, therefore, he brought into a order from chaos to cosmos. There also then, God does not create, he only supervises. He becomes a superintendent of the universe, not a creator. To create, he needs material. Two things are necessary in any creation, the idea and the material. So therefore, material, God may have idea, but where from he gets material? Some describe God as man, male, some female, fatherhood, motherhood, some in the form of neuter, some no form but with quality. God is kind, compassionate, but he has no form. Some denies God, say God is Purusha soul. Various contradictory theories are there. Shankaracharya accepts the fact of creation, but not the act. This is another distinction. The universe is beginningless. It has a fact, means it is visible, tangible. But it has no creator. It was not created by the act of God. Because we can never prove that God created both good and evil. If we say he created good, we will have to say he created evil also. And if he say that God only created good, not evil, then we will have to invent a devil to blame him for the evil. So Shankaracharya says that is the fact of creation. The universe is there. The traditional analogy, a person in semi-darkness saw on a piece of rope a cobra. The cobra which he saw and eventually brought heart attack to him was real. If he knew that it was imaginary cobra, he will not have heart condition. So this is real. It is not out of any act. That universe began at a certain point of time, 15th of March 1981. It did not begin like that. What was there before? So universe is beginningless. Creation is not due to act, but there is a fact. Is it not self-contradictory? If we deny the act, how can we assert the fact? Shankaracharya says, this is the fact. You cannot say that it is not there. But he gives, it is fact, but from relative point of view. So he describes it by the word anirvachanyo, inexplicable. It is illusory but not non-existent. Non-existent means like a lotus sky flower, or Vedantic analogy being given the son of a barren woman, or the horns of a hare, which are not possible. Shankaracharya says, it is illusory. It changes forms. It is there, like a mirage on a desert. The mirage is there from a distance. The moment you go near it, it vanishes. It is like a phantasm. So it is inexplicable. Means we cannot deny it. We cannot say that it is not there. We cannot say it is there. If the universe of pain and pleasure were totally unreal, then we would not feel pain. If it is real, we would not feel like changing it. So this is anirvachaniya. The Maya theory, it says that Maya is the power of Brahman, God's power. And through this power, supreme, one, infinite, stainless, pure, like the all-pervading sky, that pure spirit blossoms forth into many and diversity. This diversity is real, but apparently real, not absolutely real. That which is real is Brahman. Creation is only making name and form. Creation is making the one entity appear in many forms. Our creative actions means we are trying to express the same thing. Our personality, self-image, through various actions and behavior. This is called creative. One factor is constant, which is the person. So therefore, creation means making variety out of unity, making many out of one. So therefore, universe is made of name and form. Essentially, it is Supreme Brahman. What is the nature of man then? Plus, Sankaracharya says, man is no other than Brahman. His name, form, body, mind, complex, sex, they're all superimposed. He thinks like that. So therefore, this universe, man is not just an entity. He is no other than Brahman. The other two Vedanta systems or other systems, they make a distinction between man and God. God is far away from man. The universe is far away from God. The theologians are busy how to establish a connection between the two. God, universe and man. How the three to be connected. So long God is far outside of us, we have difficulty in bringing a connection. Sankaracharya bridges that gulf, God, nature and man. So that which is God is being called Brahman. That which is God in man is being called Atman. The macro and the micro, they are built on the same plan, same structure. God in man, man in God. The atheist denies God. The qualified non-dualistic Vedanta makes a distinction, trying to give a status, more reality to the world. Says that it is transformation of God. Dualistic theologies, all major popular religions, keeps God and the world two distinct and connects the two, that God is not world, world is not God. One is perishable, the other is imperishable. Sankaracharya says that there is only one God. And He alone exists. God is He, she, it. At the same time, God is nothing, nobody and everybody. A connection between the two. Three came. Sankaracharya then says that man, the world, man's keynote, rock bottom, and the rock bottom of the world, universe is Brahman. Jiva Brahmaiva Napara, Sankaracharya says. So therefore, he makes best out of God. If the atheist is telling everything is matter, other philosophies and religion, they are telling half God and half matter. Sankaracharya is saying it is all God, all Brahman. In this sense, he tries to make best out of God, spiritualizes all, instead of secularizing everything. Shankaracharya's man, therefore troubled. What is the way for him? Shankaracharya says, his sufferings, which is originating in ignorance, maybe sometime in the past, first his individuality is apparent, relative. He is like a whirlpool in the ocean, moving whirlpool. The whirlpool has a shape, has a name, but it is all water. That which is real is the movement which is making. Similar to the Buddhistic thought, that it is moving. We say it is there. No individual is the same person. What the person was yesterday is not today, always changing. What the person liked yesterday, already today rearranged, certain things rejected, certain new things added. But we call it the same person. He is not the same person. We see the water in the Hudson River, the Hudson flowing for the last 2,000 years. I don't think same Hudson is flowing, because its water is all the time changing. No one can touch the same water twice. No one can experience the two moments twice. This is called flowing. But we say this is the same thing. So what is the solution for him? Shankaracharya says, in order to put an end to the sufferings of life, there is no material solution. There is no psychological solution. There is no philosophical solution. The disease is very deep. So therefore, that which is deep, it needs a depth therapy. Other therapies are give him material alteration, conquer nature, give him more comfort. But the more you try to conquer one field of nature, nature reappears with its problem in another field. You make a person materially happy, then the person begins to feel mentally unhappy. A person who has nothing feels he must have something. Then the person who has achieved everything, then he thinks, then what to worry about? That becomes his worry. The lack of worry becomes a worry. He wants to be unhappy in order to feel happy. Therefore, where there is no cause of unhappiness, he creates unhappiness in order to test happiness. So happiness and misery, they must go together. Darkness and ignorance, light will go together. So therefore, his solution is a spiritual solution. Man's jealousy, hatred, anger, lust, thirst for enjoyment, because he is devoid of self-identity and self-image. He is inherently Satchidananda, Sat, means he exists. Chit, he is in the nature of pure consciousness. Ananda, he is. Basically his nature is joyful, which is the three epithets of Brahman. Everybody wants to remain immortal, not die. Desiring immortality, people do many things. People beget progeny. A man dies leaving children. The man perpetuates through the children. Inscribes names on rocks. If you go on highways, probably you have seen. Name is written. Or if you make a new sidewalk, you will have vivid experience. You will find the moment you have a sidewalk, you will find all the people in the neighborhood, the kids are waiting overnight. How to get a chance to inscribe a name? Why? That I am here. You know the subways, the wonderful artwork, they do graffiti. Just to draw the attention, I am here. I am something. I am somebody. You are not recognizing me. Self-image. To be immortal. These are desire for immortality. Desiring immortality, people practice religion. so that they will go to heaven after death. Then there are many ideas of heaven. The Christian heaven, the Catholic heaven, the Protestant heaven, the Islamic heaven, the Buddhistic. They say that there is no heaven. Their heaven is nirvana. Hindu heaven, these are true. Shankaracharya says, but not best. This heaven also comes to an end. This heaven is an extension of the earthly life we can imagine. Often these heaven, whether they are there or not, is a matter of belief. Because we never know anybody dead. They came and gave us the news. Although the spiritual mediums, they often bring those out of the other world, and most often they give us false information because they do not say the right. So therefore, Shankaracharya says, this also, there is no remedy by changing physical body, changing your furniture, changing your apartment, or going from New York to California, or California to New Mexico, or New Mexico to, say, for example, India. There is no rest. This, I am trying to alter the circumstances, material remedy. Then comes psychological remedy, or intellectual, cultivating hobby, art, keeping busy and occupied. That does not help. Because these are symptoms. Psychological, material, these are symptoms, not maladies. Malady is spiritual. It's a spiritual cure you need, not a material cure or intellectual cure. They're temporary. They cannot give us abiding solution. This spiritual cure, Shankaracharya says, is called liberation. Liberation means freedom. The concept of liberation has been described by the various systems in various languages. Some say it is enjoyment. Some say it is devoid of all experiences, good and bad. Some say it is going to heaven. Some say it is nirvana. Shankaracharya says, this is atmogana, knowing yourself. You know yourself. This liberation, it is not acquiring something new, not rejecting something which you did not like. It has no beginning. It was already there. If liberation begins from today, then that liberation will also end. Anything that begins with a time will end in time. If man is essentially impure, sinful, he attains to salvation on a certain day as a result of his pious activities, then he acquires something new that is not inherent to his nature. So therefore Shankaracharya says, mortal man can never be immortal. An impure man can never be pure. A wicked man can never be pious. Man was pure, pious and immortal. He began to imagine that he has become impure, impious and mortal. Began to believe in it. Then became programmed. Then that belief became real. Then the other thing became unreal, complicated. So therefore, it is in the mind, both the cause of his suffering and salvation in the mind. It's the mind he made impure. Basically, he does not believe that he is pure. So therefore, man's basic nature is divinity. He began to imagine that he has become impure. So therefore, salvation is in the belief, turning into conviction and realization that he is pure. This is called knowledge. He cannot search for this remedy in the outside world. Ultimately, he has to come back to himself. So in search of salvation or a remedy to put an end to the miseries of life, man goes in the outside world, external. He searches for it in hills and dells, in the atoms and molecules, in the places of pilgrimage in bathing waters, and sacramental food in temple altars. Then he comes back to himself. Because when he has made the circle complete, as like a straight line going infinitely forward, then it will come back to you. That is the beginning of the search, real search. When you have abandoned search in the outside world, that which is secret in you, that is the beginning of that self-knowledge. This liberation is freedom. It is not enjoyment. It is freedom. It is not freedom from anything, but in the midst of everything. It is the freedom of not having a mind or body. It is freedom in the midst of everything. This is Shankaracharya's liberation. Then, this liberation must be attainable here, Shankaracharya says. It cannot be something post-mortem. Because anything that is real must be experienceable here. There is no such thing, a celestial solution of a terrestrial problem. For my headache here, I cannot have a remedy which is heavenly remedy, because the disease is earthly. Earthly disease cannot be cured by heavenly medicine. It has to be medicine here. So therefore, this salvation, if I am to believe, it must be realizable here. It must be attainable here. One who does not attain this, he dies in bondage, will be born in bondage. So therefore Shankaracharya says, let us face the question. No use trying to deify the world as something the abode of pleasure. It is illusory. It is false. It is fake. The life which we so much extol is made of fantasy. It is no use trying to cover it by telling this is otherworldly idea or pessimistic. So often we do many things which you do not try to face. It is said that a man, he was hanged due to some conviction. So his son, he wanted to give a nice, that he didn't want to say that his father was hanged. He said, my father died during a public function when the platform gave away. It's a nice language. Similarly, we do in everyday life. We do not want to face the question. Shankaracharya says, face the question. It is not pessimism. It is the most robust optimism of life. So-called optimism is a childish thing. So much pessimism also, it is a morbid thing. Let us accept, call this spade spade. So therefore liberation must be attainable here. This liberation is freedom. It is to be attained through knowledge. Until this knowledge comes, nothing will happen. What is knowledge? Knowledge means it is not the result of any action. This is not the result of prayer, austerity, meditation. Shankaracharya says, pious, austerity, philanthropy. There is no connection between the knowledge and the activity. Shankaracharya says, this knowledge is inborn. Prayer, austerities, they only prepare the ground. With any effort of the mind, this cannot be attained. Through this effort, we only purify the mind. It is inborn, it is intuitive. It will come. So therefore, Shankaracharya says, this liberation is self-expansion. This liberation is attained only through self-knowledge. Identity of the individual and total. Until this knowledge comes, all other salvations are partial. Going to heaven, experiencing God, communioning with God, these are not complete. Complete is called nirvikalpa, only Brahman alone exists. Shankaracharya's system has been criticized by many. First is that his concept of God, Brahman, is cold, indifferent to the human concern. Shankaracharya, second, he abolishes or ignores the vital steps of ethics and morality. He minimizes the importance of ethical and moral improvement. For example, a philosophy that says Both good and evil are false. Virtue and vice, they are false. That is not a good philosophy. So therefore, an average person feels difficult to draw inspiration from Sankaracharya's philosophy. From the very beginning, if I tell that prayers also false and also your bad thoughts are false, then the average person is lost. Average person needs. It may be a grand philosophy, but it is philosophy for the selected and elected few, not for average person. Sankaracharya's cosmology, that how the creation came, that is also somewhat inexplicable. It is no explanation. He accepts the fact of creation but not the act. It will complicate it. He says, I do not know. Finally, he says that it is bondage. It is being said, he rationalizes human bondage. He says, these are all imagination, not real. Therefore, only knowledge can remove it. But knowledge, what is that nature of knowledge? Discriminatory knowledge. If the person had any strength in his intellect to convince himself that it is wrong, then he would not suffer. Most people suffer, educated people, knowing that what they suffer from, but they are helpless. So therefore, merely dependence on intellect is not enough to pull the person through. Sankaracharya's liberation, which is nirvikalpa samadhi, being Brahman, that has been the target of criticism by many. That some say that a person who becomes Brahman, then where is the life? Where is he liberated from? It is like a lion's den, because after attaining knowledge of Brahman, he does not come back. He remains in the state of Brahman. Then he has nothing to do. It is like a lion's den where everybody goes but nobody returns. So critics have said it is like that a man one day came with a duffel bag, entered into doctor's chamber. And this man was feeling various maladies, suffering from. The doctor examined him. He made several tests through several days, and then he sat down for consultation. He said, listen, you have several maladies, and one malady is very difficult. These are your prescriptions. You cannot drink, you cannot eat cake, you cannot watch TV, you cannot go for jogging, you cannot go to a nightclub, this. Meanwhile, the man took his bag and was going out. And the doctor said, don't you want to be cured? He said, cured for what? He said, cured for what? If I cannot do anything, what is the use of? So here the critics say that Sankaracharya's liberation is that. Liberated for what? If I become Brahman, then what is the meaning of life? This is one of the criticisms. Finally it says, his idea of Jivan Mukti, it is attainable here. How this is possible? The state of Nirvikalpa and attaining here is not possible. So therefore he attains that after death. Because if he cannot come back after attaining Nirvikalpa, then how to know that he attained? If he says he attained, means he did not have Nirvikalpa experience or was there. So therefore his theory of Maya is a rationalization. Finally, his theory of Maya is a logical myth he invented to soften the teaching of Gaudapada, to give a status to the world. Rather, he deviates more toward dualism than toward non-dualism, because Maya theory cannot be proved. If Maya is beginningless, but Maya comes to an end with regard to individual. These are philosophical complexities. If everything is Maya, then it is said his whole theory, his way of Sankara is also Maya. So there is no use doing it. Yet we find, they conclude, therefore, that way of Sankara is uninspiring, cold, and it is impractical, cannot be put into practice. It is world weary, if not world negating, tired of the world. And finally, it is unattainable. In conclusion, we can say that Sankara is God, even though we say that it is vague. He gives us a picture of a God which is the most infinite among the religious systems. His God is a God of all races, all culture, irrespective of color, creed, country, time. All other concepts of God, fatherhood, motherhood, they are colored God. In comparison to Sankaracharya's God, they are tribal gods, racial gods. The first time he stands as a challenge that his idea of God is free. This God receives the worship in all forms. He is free from all theological trappings, philosophical limitations. Sankaracharya's Maya theory is the only possible explanation by the limited human mind that we do not know. To accept that which is unknowable is a mark of courage and development. Those who think they can know, they are ignorant. Sankaracharya's individual is not a product of hormones and manipulation of the atoms or a product of the chain reactions of economics. His individual is pure Brahman, and he wants to be Brahman. He is Brahman. Although harassed and hustled by the vagaries of temporary factors, he can and does overcome the tragedies of circumstances. Sankaracharya's path of self-knowledge is most humanistic because he gives really, first time, a great spiritual status to man. All other systems, they made man less than God, partial God, or no God, or 10% God. First time he gives in any system the full status that man is God. And his man is a moving temple, not just a creature. He is a moving church whose indweller is God himself. And his philosophy of salvation is harmonizing. He has no quarrel with anybody. His theory, his way can adjust to any. He has nothing to quarrel. All other systems, they live with quarrel and hatred. Sankaracharya says all others have a connection to the non-dual. Non-dual does not indicate that it is a separate path. It is a culmination of all paths. It is made of all dualistic thought. So therefore, it is not in variance with other systems. It is not in competition with others. It does not make other system less or one more. It is the most harmonious and a path which has no friction, no quarrel, no division with anybody. To a sincere seeker, Sankaracharya is the hope and courage. To the dogmatic, he is impossible and irreconcilable. In the 20th century world, where everything is disintegrating, degrading, man is being used as a mere cog in a huge producing machine, where there is a widespread fall of values, where religious differences are being used as a political weapon, Sankaracharya's concept of Brahman is perhaps the last hope for the humanity. Thank you. Om Sthapakaya Dharmasya Sarvadharma Sarupine Avatara Varisthaya Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha. We bow down to Sri Ramakrishna, who is the embodiment of truth, establisher of religions and foremost of the incarnations of God. Om, peace, peace be unto us. Peace be unto all living beings.